Yeah. He kept his business in the shoebox under the bed. 3 separate lives in envelopes. I found them after he was dead. Receipts from a city we never lived in. Dates that don't line up with the story. The understated weight of a man who built a version of himself for us to see, and kept the rest filed neatly where no child would ever be looking. I'm not angry, I'm the son of the suppression of a generation taught that silence was the high expression of a man, that what you carry alone, that the family doesn't need the full accounting of the bone beneath the flesh of you. Just provide, just stand present, just occupy the silhouette of father. That was sufficient for his father and his father's father, the whole line of men who love their children through omission. And I find that line in me, the thing I don't say when I should. The shoebox under my own bed, different content, same wood, but what my father kept on, keeping something too. The silence has a shape, it fits the negative of you. I'm learning how to open what the men before me locked. The inheritance of quiet, that's the door I finally knock. There's a photograph of him at 23, laughing, open mouth, full body laughing. There's something past the frame that I will never know, and in the photograph his name is somebody else's. He's just a young man with a future that hasn't narrowed yet. The architecture of who he become not yet imposed upon the structure of who he was. I look for myself in the rupture between that young man and the father that I knew. There's a decade in between them I don't have access to. The years before he became the story that he gave us, the person before the role, the human before the status of father. I wanna know what he was afraid of, what he dreamed about at night before his life was made up. The decisions that would bind him, what he would have changed. I'm asking the dead, I know, but the asking has rearranged something in me. The question of his youth is also mine. The laughing man at 23, I'm 34, still finding the open mouth laugh that doesn't cost me something. I'm learning that the opening is not the end of nothing. Had a letter, unsent, addressed to no one, written in the handwriting of a man who was undone by something, not the year, not the address, it's just the word sorry in the middle of a sentence I can't finish. That's the story he couldn't tell to anyone, not even to himself in its entirety. So he folded it and put it on a shelf beneath the bed, intending what? I don't know. The intention of the unsent letter is a different kind of mention than the silence. It means the feeling existed, it means the words were forming. It means he resisted, not from nothing, from the architecture of a world that told him that the letter couldn't leave the drawer. I cried, not at the sorry, at the reaching that it took to write it at the man alone at night with his guilt book. Right in court, an audience, he couldn't find him sending mine. That's what Vol 3 is, that's the sign and posted letter from the men who learned to stop the keeping. What my father couldn't give away, I'm giving. I'm not sleeping, on the moment every bar is what the shoebox tried to hold. I love you, old man, Cipher souls, the quiet can be told. What my father kept, I'm learning how to give. The inheritance of quiet, that's not how I'm going to live. What my father kept, I'm learning how to give. The inheritance of quiet, that's not how I'm going to live.
Acres and a mule was issued January 1865. Field order 15, Sherman signed it. People were alive who had worked the land for free for generations. For a moment, the promise of the ground itself of ownership, the ownership's atonement, was revoked by Andrew Johnson when the summer came around. Took the land back, gave it to the former owners. That's the sound you hear in every zip code with the concentrated poverty, the broken school, the empty lot, the deferred property of a people whose first promise payment was rescinded. The first chapter of the American default, now it's embedded in the gap between the median wealth of black and white. 10 to 1, $10 to every 100, do the math right. 8 generations of the compound interest on the theft. You don't need reparations to be political, just left the accounting open. Let the ledger speak, the ledger's not a feeling. It's arithmetic and arithmetic is the villain. 40 acres deferred is 40 trillion owed. The ledger doesn't lie, you can check the episode. This isn't grievance, this is the accountant. The the debt is due, the only question is the mountain.
Like this is the right, like going out the night, like going out right.
A GI Bill sent 2 million veterans to college. Black men were excluded at the implementation. Pen on paper looked like access. In the county office it was closed. The loan officer, the university's August admissions board, the suburban covenant that said the deed is voided if you sell to prominent American doctrine, redlining as official policy until 1968. The pharmacology of race and American wealth building systematic. The neighborhood, the school, the bank, the automatic disadvantage built into the structure, not the culture. And we still debate if the wound requires the suture of acknowledgement, as if the question is still open. The data is not debating, only people who've been broken by the comfort of the counterfactual. I didn't own slaves, no, but you inherited the equity, count the waves. I'm not rapping this for the people who already agree. I'm rapping this for the kid who thinks that poverty is a character defect, who hasn't been shown the graph of the timeline, who was never asked to do the math in school because the math is not in the curriculum of comfort. The acknowledgement of the millennium of deliberate extraction is not on the standardized test, but it's on the bodies, it's in the health, it's in the stress, the shortened lifespans, it's in the response time of the ambulance to different zip codes. Every rhyme I've written about the city has us underneath it. The 40 acres is the ground of everything. Beneath it is the answer to the question, why does it look like this? Not pathology, not culture policy, the abyss between the promise and the practice. That's America's long unsettled balance. Cipher souls, the error is not before us, it's right now. The reckoning is current, the ledger's still open. That's the urgent. 40 acres deferred, the ledger doesn't close. The debt is in the arithmetic, every cipher knows.
Genius that the system redirected.
Think about that.
Every prison is a cabinet full of what we lost.
The question isn't if they had the gift. The question is the cause.
Let me tell you about Marcus, 8 years old, reading at 13, 12 years old, solving math that the teacher hadn't seen in a student before. She told his mother recommended the gifted program. The paperwork extended through a system understaffed and overwhelmed. It got lost. His mother worked 2 shifts, had 4 kids. The cost of advocacy in that zip code was the day job she couldn't miss. By 19 he was navigating something other than this. The decision that the environment made for him before he had the language for the alternative. The slim thread of the gifted program cut by paperwork and intention. I'm not absolving the choice, I'm mapping the dimension of the choice. The bandwidth required to choose correctly when the system is designed to redirect you indirectly. But with precision, Marcus is somebody's father now. The math he did at 12, his kid is doing, that's the how. The school to prison pipeline is not a metaphor, it's a documented throughput, the architecture of a floor that has a drain installed, the suspension rate, the resource gap, the officer in the hallway where the counselor should be. The map from the under-resourced school to the over-resourced cage is a straight line, and the line was drawn before this age, before this generation. Policy decisions made in rooms with people in them who were not the people in the tombs. Then those decisions built the mandatory minimum, the Rockefeller drug laws, the criminal continuum, that a possession charge begins at a record then perpetuates the background check, the housing denial, or unemployed state. That then statistically, the studies right here, increases the likelihood of return. The pipeline never ceases, it's self-sustaining, that's not accident, that's engineering of a permanent underclass. Cipher souls, that's what we're clearing.
Cormega could have been your senator.
Think about that.
The genius that the system redirected.
Think about that.
man inside who could've, should've, would've built the thing, the business, the laboratory, the brotherhood of discovery. Men with the intelligence of anybody in any building who got the wrong classroom, the wrong body of evidence presented at the worst moment. Who made a decision at 17 that a 17-year-old made in the system does not run on the logic of the teenager who grows. It runs on the logic of the cager, of the permanent, of the labeled and the filed and the managed. And I want you to see the child in every number on the incarceration graph. Before the crime, before the sentence. Do the math on who he was at 7, who she dreamed of being at 10. That's the senator, the surgeon, the teacher. And then the pipeline got efficient. Cipher soul say their names, the redirected genius. That's the whole reclaim.
Cormega could have been your senator. The gift was real. The pipeline was more real. That's the reckoning we feel.
My grandmother ironed everything, including the underwear. The Sunday best aesthetic wasn't vanity, it was the prayer. Of give them nothing to use against us. The presentation is armor, the crease in the trouser as declaration that we belong, that we are not what the neighborhood says we are, that our dignity is understood. In the language of the people who control the room, the press collar as translation, the careful grooming as resume. For the world that makes you apply again each day. For the right to be here, that's the exhausting algebra of respectability. The constant calendar of performing legibility for systems that invented the illegibility. And my grandmother, she meant it as love. Every iron edge was, I want more for you. But underneath the love was, if you look like less, they'll do what they've always done. Both things are true at once. The armor and the love, the Sunday best. The months of Sundays navigating dignity in a system that denies it. The crease was radical, and also the crease can't fix it. Sunday best was armor, not performance. The dignity was real, so was the cost of the accordance. We wore the mask because the mask, it kept us breathing. Now I'm asking what we lost. In all that careful leaving. My cousin stopped code switching at 31. Just stopped to register the vocabulary, the carefully cropped version of himself for the office. He walked in one Monday, full unedited, unapologetic, and the Sunday best he wore was his own actual self. It cost him the promotion that year. The system tossed him back to the margin when he stopped playing margin. He's the happiest I've seen him and the hardest bargain he's ever made. The tax for the authentic in the space, not built for it, and he pays it with his face. Open now, the code switching was a second job. He worked for 30 years for free, the mental rob of the daily translation, the leaving home at the door. He says he sleeps now like he hasn't slept before. I think about the 30 years, the genius that the switching took from the work that he was doing, all that energy stitching, a self for rooms that only wanted half of him. The cost, of the Sunday best is sometimes everything you've almost lost. The complexity is this, the mask that protect us. My grandmother was right, the world she navigated would infect us with its full judgment if we gave it ammunition. She wasn't wrong, the tactic was a pragmatic decision. In a world with real stakes, not respectability, politics as ideology, survival as logistics. And now in a different world, not a safe world, but a different one. The children of the Sunday best generation run into a question that wasn't available before. What does dignity look like when it doesn't need the armor? What does the self sound like without the careful filter. Who are we in the register? That isn't built for the builder of our repression. What's the mother tongue? The grammar of our actual selves. The years are young on that discovery. Cipher souls are in the finding. The Sunday best was love, and now the love is the unbinding.
Sunday best was armored.
Now I'm learning my own language.
The dignity was always ours.
The mask was just the management.
Circuses, the Romans already documented this. Keep the people fed and entertained and they'll miss the movement of the money and the laws at the top. The spectacle is the mechanism. It doesn't stop, 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 doesn't stop. The Colosseum held 80,000 while the grain dough ran. The Roman policy of keeping just enough for the man to not revolt, just enough food, just enough spectacle. The allocation of attention is the receptacle of power. He who controls what you're looking at controls you. Simple as that. Now look at that. The algorithm that decides what reaches your eye was not designed by accident. The feed is designed to amplify the outrage and the envy and the tribal confirmation of what you already believe. The personalization is a hall of mirrors built to keep you in it. Social physics. Outrage travels farther every minute than the correction. The lie laps the truth 6 times before the truth puts shoes on. I'm reading the designs on the architecture of your daily information diet. Who profits from the chaos? Follow that? Then try it, 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 then try it. The entertainment was always political. The first network television decisions, what gets airtime. The rehearsed diversity of opinion within the narrow band. The over and window managed by the invisible hand of ownership. 6 corporations controlling most of the information infrastructure, coast to coast. And the content that performs is not the content that informs. It's the content that provokes the click, the content that confirms the fear. Because the fear is the engagement metric. The ad revenue is the incentive, and the kinetic energy of manufactured panic keeps the people on the platform, keeps the eyeball, keeps the steeple of attention pointed at the screen and not the street where the actual decision is being made. That's the beat beneath the headline, not the politician's face. The policy, the money, the infrastructure of the space, 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 of the space. I don't wanna leave this as a warning without the work, because the cynicism is the second trap, the irk of everything is corrupt. There's an excuse to disengage is what the system also wants. The apathetic age is just as useful as the distracted one. The goal is not to make you paranoid. The goal is to hold attention directed with attention, which requires the deliberate consumption of the thing that transpires slowly. The policy, the local, the granular. The school board meeting is a more particular site of power than the cable news anchor. Your city council vote is the real ranker, where the bread is actually distributed, where the actual circus is licensed and permitted. Civic purposeful practice of democracy at the level where it touches you. That's the counter. Cipher souls, the knowing is the breakthrough. Bread and circuses, but you don't have to watch. The real arena is the local, don't botch. The attention that you own, it's finite, spend it right. The cipher is an act of paying the correct attention. Fight, 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 fight.
an apology I've been rehearsing for 3 years. I've gotten to the opening 3 times, and the gears of self-protection lock. I find the refrain, find the but that restructures the accounting, finds the rut in your behavior that becomes the subject, and I leave the room before I say the thing. I still believe I owe, and this is the self-knowledge that's the hardest earned, that I am capable of knowing I was wrong and still haven't turned away from the admission, capable of seeing clearly and choosing the comfort of the ambiguous, nearly getting there and redirected every time. And this is not a character of evil, this is the abyss of ordinary cowardice, the failure of the good enough man to close the distance between knowing and the actual plan of action. I'm done rehearsing, this is the draft, the 7th version, this time it goes past.
The apology I owe is not a small thing, it's the acknowledgement of a person I was when I was less than what I knew I should be, and I knew the knowing without the doing is a debt that's overdue.
The people I have harmed through negligence are harder than the ones I harmed in anger. Anger has a charter, it's legible, it has a shape. You can point to the moment in the build-up. The negligence is the opponent that's invisible. The friend I didn't call for 6 months when the calling was the everything. The subtle stunts of self-absorption dressed as busy. The child of my distraction who got my back while the mile of my attention ran ahead into the project. I was present in the building, absent in the subject of what mattered. And I know the people who received the absence, who waited for me to perceive their need. And I'm accounting for the years of showing up with everything but being that appears on the ledger as a withdrawal. I'm not listing them for the audience, I'm listing them for the record. It's massive.
The apology I owe is not a small thing, it's the acknowledgement of a person I was when I was less than what I knew I should be, and I knew that knowing without the doing is the debt that's overdue.
The apology, the apology, 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 the apology, the apology, apology, apology.
The apology that actually heals is not the apology that manages the apologizer's feeling. Not the catalog of qualifications, not the context dump, not that I was going through a lot that recenters the wrong, though, or knowing that the person wronged has their own going through. The real apology begins with the specific, the full revealed accounting of what happened on this specific day. I did this specific thing, I know it caused this way. I am not here to negotiate the ledger, I am here to acknowledge it, to sit in the discomfort clear enough to be useful to you, not to me. That's the form that changes things, the other kind is just the warm feeling of the unburdening, the offload is relief, passed to the person harmed, disguised as grief. I'm learning the difference, I'm learning the patience of the real thing. Cipher souls, accountability's the station.
The apology I owe, giving it now without the refrain,
without the safety.
that's the vow. The apology I owe, giving it now without the refrain,
Without the safety.
that's the vow.
The apology, the apology, apology, the apology, the apology, apology, apology.
I know what it is. Yeah. But I be down for it, man. Man, we OG, yeah. Yo. All them here shit walk on in the streets.
Big girl told me never let a man know the full size of your hunger, or they'll make you wait. The leverage of the younger self is the desperation that shows up in the ask. He said negotiate like you could walk away, that's the task of every table. Practice on the small things first. He said this on a crate outside the bodega, unrehearsed. A 30-second lecture in the pocket of a Tuesday that I've used at every table since. The schoolway was never the building, it was Earl. It was the women on the stoop who watched the street and knew who was winning before the game was over. The informal curriculum of the corner was a graduate program, the continuum of knowledge that no institution credentialed. Big Earl never owned a briefcase, but his credential was the kind of travel that survives the relocation. The proverb lives in me, that's the oral education. What the OG said at the corner,
I'm filing.
the wisdom without the institution.
I'm compiling.
They spoke in proverb and in parable and in the specific example. The knowledge of the block is a curriculum, I'm the sample.
I'm filing.
Miss Patterson told my mother, your children see everything. Don't worry about what you say, worry about what you're being. I heard that through the wall at 8 years old, it landed sideways. I didn't have the frame for it, but it expanded over 20 years into the most important thing I know about parents and the invisible teaching of the modeled life. I watch my choices when I think nobody's looking. The small integrity, the brink of the small dishonesty where nobody would know. And I remember Miss Patterson, I remember the shadow of the child. I was behind the wall and I hold the line, not for the audience, for the kid in the space behind every room I'm in, the one I'm modeling for. Without the speech, Miss Patterson, that's the whole tour of ethics I received 40 years before. I understood the gift, the stoop is the ivory floor. What the OG said at the corner, I'm following it. The wisdom without the institution, I'm compiling. They spoke in proverb and in parable, and in the specific example, the knowledge of the block is a curriculum. I'm the same. I'm following it. I'm compiling it. I'm following it. Yeah. I'm compiling it. The formal education taught me how to make an argument in the grammar of the institution, the management of the official, the credential and the citation. The corner taught me how to read a situation before it turned, how to hold a thing loosely, how to know the difference between the person and the role. They show you how to be patient when the patience is the strategy. Two different languages, both necessary. The tragedy is when the education made you think the corner had nothing, made you look at Earl and see a mourner for a life unlived. Instead of the philosopher, he was the transfer of the knowledge, is the offer, go in both directions. I carry Earl into the boardroom, and I bring the boardroom's grammar to the storeroom, where Earl's people work, Cipher souls translate. The wisdom lives everywhere, that's the whole estate. The OG said,
I'm still using it.
The proverb on the corner,
I'm refusing to lose it.
what the OG said,
I'm still using it.
The proverb on the corner,
I'm refusing to lose it.
Yo, 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 yo,
The permission I wanted to give myself in this verse is the full laugh, not the measure one. The whole body involved laugh, the one my nephew does when something lands exactly right. The full commitment, joy, no calculation, no slight. Self-consciousness about the volume or the looseness. I've been so careful with my joy, as if the usefulness of suffering was more legitimate than the actual delight of being here. As if the gravity was more right than the levity, as if I had to earn the celebration by first completing the indictment, the documentation of everything that's wrong. And then maybe if I paid the full fee of awareness, I can be in the arcade for a minute. That's not the assignment. The assignment is both simultaneously. The alignment of joy and grief is not a contradiction. It's the human condition. Full permission. Black boy joy, the real one, not the curated, not the dignified, not the safe, the one that's innovated through the whole body, uncontained, full of mission. The joy is not despite the struggle, it's the mission. I watched my father almost smile at basketball and pull it back, like he caught himself, like the joy required the knack of containment. Like a man who shows he cares too much is at risk. That generation had a particular touch of coolest protection. The enthusiasm was the vulnerability that made you a target, so the ability to be moved was rationed. The joy was private, the love was demonstrated, not declared. And from above, the child's perspective, it can read his absence. I was 30 before I understood the love inside the dirty heart, out a shell of cool, but I want something else. I want the full version on the table. I want to help my nephew understand that the full-throated delight of being alive is not a weakness, it's the right use of the gift. The tears at the beautiful music are not embarrassing, they are the whole thesis.
Kiddo live up on the creases, kiddo live up on the creases, kiddo live up on the creases, kiddo live up on the
The resistance is the joy, that's not a bumper sticker, it's a strategic fact. The system that has sticker priced our humanity as something less than full has always relied on the extraction of the pull toward life, the grinding down of the permission to be glad. The deliberate manufacture of the endless sad is the default register of black existence. The joy is the resistance, not the distance from the grief, but the insistence that the grief is not the only frequency that the leaf falls, and the tree is still a tree, that the winner is not the end of green, that we can splinter the grief apart from joy and holding both is real. The laugh at the funeral is not denial, it's the deal, the living make with death. We're still here, we're still laughing. Cipher souls, the joy is the whole accounting. Black boy joy, give it the whole room. The full permittance and the delight, that's the full bloom.
6 million people moved, the largest internal migration in American history. No vote, no legislation that invited them, just a decision made by individuals in Mississippi and Alabama. The rituals of leaving, the suitcase packed before the sunrise, the letter sent ahead. The cousins addressed the enterprise of starting over. 1910 to 19th century, the demographics of the North completely rewritten by the decision of 6 million people to reject the terror, to choose the difficult over the correct. Brutality, and the North was not the promised land, but it was possible. Impossible was enough to demand the impossible courage of the leaving of the train. The Chicago and the Pittsburgh and the Detroit rain falling on people who had never felt the winter, and still they came. And what they built is in the splinter. They moved the nation's culture on their backs and in the mouth. 6 million people carrying the North from out the South. The great migration is the foundation of the sound. Blues became jazz, became soul, became the ground. They moved the nation's culture on their backs and in the mouth. 6 million people carrying the North from out the South. The great migration is the foundation of the sound. Blues became jazz, became soul, became the ground. My great grandmother left Greenwood, Mississippi in 1941. She was 19, she knew one person in Chicago done with the calculation, the cotton, the fear, the particular terror of the Mississippi night. The vehicular stop on the road that could become anything. She said years later that she was more afraid of the northern cold than dead, because the cold was unknown. The South's danger she had mapped. The North was all the unmapped future, and she packed the food her mother made. Sweet potato, dried and wrapped, carried it on the Illinois Central, a map. Distance in the geography, but a universe apart. In the possibility, she arrived with $11 in her heart, full of the leaving, full of the mother she left at the station. She built my family out of that arrival. That migration is the reason I exist, is the sample I'm built from. Cipher sold the 6 million, that's where the beat comes from. The culture they carried is the culture we stand in. The Chicago blues became Chicago soul, became the landing pad for hip-hop. The Detroit sound became Motown, became the sonic language of Black America. The same movement that gave us the great migration gave us the music, the church migration, the community institution built in the northern cities. The barbershop, the Negro League, the fraternity, the sorority, the whole league. A black civic infrastructure built by people who arrived with almost nothing and build everything survived. The North's particular racism, the red line, the sun downtown just outside the city limit, and they built around every obstacle. The resilience is not a compliment, it's an indictment of the obstacle, and yet the monument is real. 6 million people changed the world. My great grandmother's $11 still unfurled. The great migration, I'm still moving in it. Cipher souls, we're built from every minute of it. Cipher is the oldest democracy I've witnessed working, no credential at the door, no moderator lurking to determine who is valid, just the circle and the bar, just the thing you bring and what you bring is what you are. Nobody owns the cipher, nobody chairs the meeting, the turn goes round, the rulers just competing with what you actually have, not with the position that you hold outside the circle. The admission is the willingness to stand inside and offer. I've seen PhDs get humbled and the softer voice from the corner go hard and take the room. The cipher levels every hierarchy, the tomb of the credential in the open circle. The professor who can't spit doesn't get the nod. The lesser resume with bars gets the whole head. That's the science of the form. It's perfect in its self-reliance. The cipher is the democracy before the institution. The bar is the constitution. The circle is the solution. Nobody voting here on who deserves to speak. You either got it or you don't. The cipher is the peak of the meritocracy we actually want to see. The round table was an Orient mythology. The round cipher is empirical sociology, a black cultural space, and it predates the Arthurian by centuries of the African communitarian circle. The griot at the center of the ring, the village gathering, the ceremonial thing of the spoken word is shared. It's public as the heir to hip-hop. Cipher didn't invent this, it continued the affair between black people and the power of the gathered voice. The spoken testimony as the democratic choice of how to govern, meaning who determines what is true is not the institution, it's the circle and the view of everyone inside it. The consensus of the listening, the nod is the vote. That's the actual christening of the value, not the grade, not the published paper. The cipher is the peer review of the real shaper. Yeah. But the cipher has its failures too. The honest telling of the form includes its limits. The compelling vision of the equal circle has its shadow. The women who got short time at the meadow of the mic, the voices talked over. The gatekeeping, dressed as casual. The circle sleeping on the complexity of who feels safe to stand inside it. The cipher is democracy, is the ideal. Beside it is the practice, and the practice needs the same accountability the institution gets. The claim of the informal is not exemption from the standard. I've seen the cipher silence someone and then handed the next turn to the friend of the one who silenced. The circle has the same disease, just quiet violence instead of policy. And the healing is the same work. Who's not in the cipher? Why cipher souls do the homework? Cipher is the form we want to govern by, and the cipher needs the same accounting. That's the reply. 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 That's the reply.
James Baldwin told us, not from a pulpit but a page, the price of the ticket is the examination of the rage, not the suppression. The examination, that's the difference between the wound that festers and the wound that builds resistance.
He said the country's history is not its history, but its mythology. And the mythology is held in place by the silence of the comfortable. The American who cannot reckon with the full account of what was done in the building of the dream. The white moderate who wants the justice but the stream of daily comfort not disturbed. The liberal ally who wants the progress at the speed that doesn't fly, too close to their own sacrifice. Baldwin named that in 1963, and the name still fits the same cat. In 1996, the timeline is the evidence that the reckoning deferred is not the reckoning done. The president doesn't matter, the moment doesn't matter, the pattern does. The same negotiation, the same yes, but it was always possible to do the thing. The cost was the comfort of the people who have never lost. He said love is not the sentiment, love is the act of seeing fully, without the fiction, the exact and difficult and generous attention to the person in their full reality, not the version that confirms your comfort, not the curated self they show you, but the whole one, the complete wealth and damage of a human being, and the willingness to stay, to choose again. That's the business of love and the political love. The love of country is the same thing. To love America with the gentry of the examined is to hold the full account. The founding documents and the founding mound of violence underneath them, both are true. The love that can't hold both is not the love that's due. A country is the love of a child who needs the story. Simple. Baldwin loved America with full-grown glory. He said, I love America more than any other country. And exactly for this reason I insist on the right to criticize her perpetually. That's the light I want to hold the cipher to. The love that criticizes is the mature one, the comfort that apologizes for the criticism before it's even made. Is the love that's afraid, the love that's been betrayed by its own softness. I carry Baldwin in the bar, not as an ornament, but as the compass star. When I want to stop before the uncomfortable, before the white moderate and the comfortable liberal call it too much, I remember the man who sat in Paris and wrote America from the exact distance of the exile that gave him perspective. The love and the truth together, the corrective that is also the commitment. Cipher souls say it, the price of the ticket is the full truth, pay it.
James Baldwin told us we just had to listen. The love and the truth together, that's the mission.
Yeah. Nobody taught me compound interest in the school I went to. The personal finance, the index fund, the venue of that education was the household of the family that already had it, and the family that did it in Nanley reinvents the wheel. These generation attacks on ignorance of the system is compounding the facts of wealth accumulation are not complicated. Time and rate and principle, the segregated information has been keeping people starting late, starting with debt and no equity. The weight of the first generation who must learn and save simultaneously, who enters the economic cave without a map. I'm making the map right now. The index fund, the emergency fund, the how of the Roth IRA. This is not the boring finance talk. This is the cipher. This is the real walk. Every dollar has a door. You got to know the building. Every dollar has a door. You got to know the building. Every dollar has a door. You got to know the building. Every dollar has a door. You got to know the building. The wealth gap is not just the income, it's the asset, the land, the stock, the business equity, the basket of things that earn while you sleep, the basket, architecture of the money, and the massive head start of the inheritance. The first dollar is the hardest. I'm not the scholar of the motivation speech, I'm talking practical. The credit score, the LLC, the categorical. Business accounts separate from the personal. The quarterly tax, the deductible, the versional. Understanding of the entity I'm rapping about. The mechanic of the money, the way out of the position of the purely employed is the partial ownership, not paranoid about the market. Patient with the long game, cipher souls. The financial education is the first claim. Every dollar has a door. You got to know the building. Every dollar has a door. You got to know the building. Every dollar has a door. You got to know the building. Every dollar has a door. You got to know the building. But the
money conversation can't happen in a vacuum. The financial literacy is necessary to boom. If individual solution can't replace the structural, I want the young man to invest. I want the instructional to be available, and I also want the honest telling. The system is designed with particular yelling at the entry point of certain people. The credit system built on a history of exclusion, the schism between the advice and the reality. Pull yourself up from a starting line that's 3 miles back. That's the rough accounting of individual and collective both. The personal responsibility and the oath of the collective to change the system. Simultaneously, the cipher holds both, not the either or. The profane ease of the binary is the trap. Invest in organized financial literacy and political action. Both thrive. Every dollar has a door. I'm teaching to still build. Every dollar has a door. Cipher souls both yield. Every dollar has a door. I'm teaching to still build. Every dollar has a door. Cipher souls both yielding.
Is now a gallery, the corner where the OGs held their parliament, not salary. Professionals drink craft beer where the cipher used to turn. I'm not against the beer, I'm against the erase, the burn of the living memory of who was there before the lease. Triple the long-term tenet in the newest piece of the narrative called revitalization, whose vitality was subtracting the process, the banality of the Bloomberg era logic. The neighborhood's pathology is poverty, the cure is capital. The apology of the development is the affordable unit promise that delivers a fraction of what was demolished. Thomas, who lived on the block for 40 years, is now in Queens, commuting back to the neighborhood. That's what gentrification means. In the body, not to think peace. And the actual Thomas, whose mourning is longer now, and whose home is, they called it revitalization. They meant replacement. The neighborhood they renovated needed displacement to maintain the vision. I'm bearing witness to the missing. The community built the character worth inheriting. The history of the neighborhood was in the walls. A mural by the kid who's now in prison. The halls of the community center where the after school happened. The church whose congregation built the neighborhood from nothing. That's the infrastructure that the development can't replicate with the reclaimed wood. The elegant brunch spot doesn't do what the church did on a Tuesday. The informal economy of the neighbor who knew your name, who watched the children, who called your mother. That's not zoning. That's not something the developer can build back in. And when the long-term residents leave, they take the knowledge of the place, the particular weave of relationships that is the actual neighborhood. What remains is the aesthetic, which is good for photography, and empty of the living tissue that made it worth the photograph. That's the issue. Suggesting the neighborhood freeze in amber. Cities change, have always changed. The chamber of the history contains the migrations that built every neighborhood. The guilt is not in the changes, in the acceleration past the capacity of people to find a new station in the same geography. The question is the speed and the policy. What does the city decide to heed when the market and the long-time resident are in tension? Which version of the city gets the protection of the zoning board, whose definition of the vital is the deciding one? That's the recital of power in the municipal, and the answer is in the organizing. The community cancer only spreads unchecked in the absence of the political. The displacement is reversible, but the critical mass of people who remember must remain to fight it. Cipher souls bear witness, then ignite it. Gentrification elegy, but elegies don't end things. The witness is the first step, then the organizer brings.
Freedmen's Bureau lasted 3 years, and then the withdrawal of the federal protection, the political call to normalize, to return the South to Southern governance, and in the vacuum left by the abandonment of Providence, black people built. The church became the everything, the school, the bank, the meeting hall, the gathering of mutual aid societies, the fraternal orders. Then we CP beyond all borders of the expected and the legal terrorism of Jim Crow. The institution that sustained the people was the slow accumulation of the mutual, the dollar in the pot. The neighbor who hired the neighbor, the vacant lot, turned to the cooperative, the insurance company, built by black actuaries when the white company declined the risk. That's not survival, that's creation, the making of the world you need from the situation. What we built in the dark is still standing in the light. The institution born from necessity survives the night. The church, the school, the mutual aid, the neighborhood, built from the exclusion, that's the permanent good. Howard University was founded 1867, let that breathe. 2 years after the Civil War, the architects weave the institution from the rubble of the war. Lincoln Fisk Morehouse, the historical score of the HBCU, is the largest mass higher education project in response to exclusion in the nation's history. And they produced the lawyers who argue. Brown v. Board, the engineers, the guard of the civil rights movement came from these institutions. Thurgood Marshall, MLK, the solutions to American apartheid were educated at the schools built because the white schools said no. The rules of exclusion built the infrastructure of resistance. Every HBCU is the proof that the persistence of the people is generative, is creative, is the making of the necessary from the punitive.
They gon' lie to ride, I need a taste like your mom. They gon' vibe. They gon' lie to ride, I need a taste like your mom.
The Mutual Aid Society is the original social net. Before the New Deal, before the safety, before the debt of government to citizen was acknowledged. Black communities were running their own. The fraternal immunities of the circle of the mutual. You pay when you can, you draw when you need. The covenant of the plan that has no shareholders, just members, just the people who agree to hold each other. That's not the steeple of the church or the lecture hall. It's the agreement of the circle, the cipher, the oldest increment of the democratic, and it's operational today in the group chat, in the GoFundMe, in the way the community circles the person in the crisis. The form is modern, but the function is the highest expression of the oldest thing we do together. Cipher souls, what we build in the dark is the weather that we live inside. We built the house, we are the house. Don't let the erasure make you doubt. We built in the dark is still standing. What we built in the dark is still standing.
In the brace, I'll make you ride. In the brace, I'll make you ride.
What we built in the dark is still standing. Cipher souls, the institution is the landing.
The record predates the label, predates the pressing plant and the turntable. It's in the call and response of the congregation in the field. Holla, that became the blues, the translation of grief and the beauty is the oldest technology of the people. The cipher is archaeology. Going forward, every bar is a dig into the source and the deposit for the ones who come after the course. Correction for the timeline runs through the word. The spoken thing that makes the invisible heard. I'm not the origin, I'm the middle passage of the sentence that began before my birth and will survive my sentences. The rapper is the griot when the urban form. The function is identical to carry through the storm of the culture zone, forgetting the deliberate erasure by the institution. The cipher is the treasure, hidden in the plain sight of the block.
The frequency is older than the format. Cipher souls maintain it, that's the contract.
The word was here before the record and survives it. Every generation inherits it and drives it forward.
That's the mission, that's the core. The cipher doesn't end, it just grows tall, 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 tall.
The thing that moves me most about the form is the democracy of the difficulty, the technical meritocracy that doesn't care about your lineage, just the bar, and the bar requires the work, whoever you are. The hours in the notebook, the practice of the discipline of the made thing, the apprenticeship, the citizen, or the cipher earns through the doing, through the return, to the page, through the willingness to learn from the ones who came before, the careful listening, to the rock him and the KRS, the glistening of the studied ear, and then the addition of the self, not the imitation, but the reach the shelf of your own voice, the particular way you see the thing. That's the contribution. That's what you bring into the circle, the synthesis of the received and the original. The cipher is the form, the feeling is the individual.
With the format, with the format, why did it till we down let's that's the format.
3 volumes and then the frequency is still the frequency. The form hasn't tired because the form is the residency of the human need to speak and be heard. He answered the call and the response, and I'm the latest dancer in this particular tradition. And I know that the ones who come after me will take the show back from whatever I brought it, and they'll go further. And I want that. That's the measure of the thing being alive when it outgrows you. When the student becomes something that you didn't know to be, and you recognize the frequency in them, but you don't recognize the form, and you affirm it anyway because the frequency is the inheritance, not the form. The form is generational difference. That is healthy. Cipher Souls Vol 3 is not the end, it's the hand reaching back and the hand reaching ahead. My friend, the circle doesn't close, it spirals, it ascends. The frequency continues, that's the whole, that's how this ends. That's how this begins, that's how this always will begin. The word in the circle, the people gather, the cipher, the end. Men.
The frequency is older than the format. Cipher Souls maintain it, that's the contract.
The word was here before, and it continues. It continues.